It's week 15 of the NFL season, which means most fantasy leagues will start their playoffs. If you have a championship in week 18, you need a new commish. We're also clear of any more buys after 4 teams took a break last week. Waiver Wire Walkthrough with Jamey Eisenberg and Dave Richard from Fantasy Football Today.
Thanks, Tommy. Yes, it's a big week, week 15. No teams on a bye. Hopefully your injuries are minimal. We do have some injuries that we're keeping an eye on. We'll talk about that, how it impacts the waiver wire. But Dave, it's a fun part of the fantasy season. This is where everything matters right now, the fantasy playoffs. It took skill to get here. It's going to take luck to win a championship, and hopefully we'll guide you as best we can. Let's start with the quarterbacks that you're looking to add off the waiver wire. We know that Daniel Jones now out for the rest of the season with that Achilles injury, waiting to find out about Jaden Daniels with that elbow injury. And if he's out, that allows Marcus Mariota to once again be someone you should be potentially starting this week. Great matchup against the Giants. He's been a starter for 6 games this season because of Daniel's injuries, and in 4 of those, he's been over 20 fantasy points. The Giants are top 3 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So Mariota has a chance to be a potential #1 quarterback for this week. Hopefully he can deliver, along with maybe C.J. Stroud, who's not exactly playing very well, Dave, coming off 2 mediocre performances since missing 3 games with a concussion. But he does get the Arizona Cardinals. They've been very bad against quarterbacks lately. And if you look at Stroud at home, in his last 2 of his last 3 home games, he's been over 21 fantasy points. So hopefully being at home in a matchup against the Cardinals allows him to produce at a high level. We do not like him as much as Sportsline does, but obviously there's a chance if Stroud does happen to be in your fantasy lineup, he can lead you to the next round. But Marcus Mariota, C.J. Stroud, the top 2 guys. Then it gets a little dicey as you saw the list. Tyler Shuck is actually playing very well, over 21.3 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, and one of those was against the Carolina Panthers. He had 22.9 points against them in Week 10, so they are getting a little bit healthier. The Panthers are in their secondary. However, Shuck, as we saw last week, can use his legs, 2 rushing touchdowns. So I think if you need somebody in a desperate situation, Tyler Shuck is the way to go. All right, Dave, let's talk about running backs, because we have a big injury here with the Miami Dolphins. Devon Achane, we don't know about his status with the rib injury. We'll see about Tyrone Tracy with his status with the hip injury last time we saw him. But what are we looking at with the running back position?
2 pieces of advice. First and foremost, if you've got Devon Achane, you've got to make Jalen Wright the #1 priority off the waiver wire. And it looks good for Achane to play on Monday, but it's on Monday, and you're not going to know 100% if he's going to play or not. So getting Jalen Wright is an important thing to do if you've got Achane or if you're playing against the team that has Devon Achane. But if that's not you, this doesn't sound fun, but Devin Singletary is the guy that you should go after if you need a running back in week number 15. He's given you at least 10 PPR points in 3 of his past 4 games. The Commanders have allowed 6 running backs to get 15 or more PPR points in their past 8 games. Is it going to be Singletary? Is it going to be Tyrone Tracy? Tracy coming back from an injury as well. They both could split, but they could both do fairly well because the Commanders just aren't great against the run. In Singletary's favor is he's preferred at the goal line compared to Tyrone Tracy. At least he was before the bye. And here's a nice little cherry on top with Singletary. He gets Vegas in week 17. That should be another favorable matchup for Devin Singletary. So I don't mind him this week as a number 3 type of a running back. Really, it's for those fantasy managers that are desperate at the position to go with Devin Singletary. After him, Blake Corum makes the list, and we've seen it from him now each of the last 2 weeks. 14 or more PPR points for the LA Rams. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's getting a lot of explosive plays, but that's what the Rams want. It's kind of what they need, and it should be a high-scoring game for the Rams this week. Once those guys are gone, it's gross. You can look at this list and you see Dylan Sampson, you see Tyjae Spears. You're looking at 2 running backs that in a good week will get you 8 PPR points. I think you could ask for and hope for better than that from the other 3 backs, especially Wright if there is no Achane in week 15.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, these guys are all ifs for sure. The one thing about Wright, though, because we know that there's a potential path to starting. If he starts, must start. Potential top 20, potential top 15 guy. So I might let somebody else go get Singletary's along the same path, and he's actually been producing. But like Corum, you're never going to know what to trust him. He does have touchdowns the last 2 games, but prior to that, he was just getting 7, 8 carries, not doing very much with it. Obviously, you know what you're getting with Sampson and with Spears. If Wright starts, that's the type of guy that can help you win your playoff week. So for me, he's the #1 guy to go get. Let's talk about some wide receivers that you're looking at off the waiver wire here. And Luther Burden got a big opportunity last week and did somewhat take advantage of it. Got you 10 PPR points against the Packers, but we know Rome Odunze dealing with that foot injury. Consider week to week. We don't know if he'll play in week 15 against the Cleveland Browns, but Burton is going to continue to improve, hopefully, on what we've seen since their bye week, getting more attention, more targets, more playing time. But again, the path to success is certainly there if there is no Rome Odunze taking on the Browns. Denzel Ward also banged up in the secondary for Cleveland, so might have a chance to see Luther Burden as a good number 3 wide receiver. Jaden Reed's a little tougher to trust, taking on the Broncos this week. First came back since leaving with that foot and shoulder injuries in week 2. Did have 2 carries, did have the 3rd most snaps of the wide receiver position for the Packers. This is going to be a tough game for Christian Watson. Romeo Doubs feels like he's getting, despite playing a lot, not a lot of targets, getting phased out a little bit. Jaden Reed may be somebody who takes a step forward, not somebody you might want to start in week number 15, but in week 16 does get the Chicago Bears again. And then this is another situation similar to the Jalen Wright scenario. CeeDee Lamb's in the concussion protocol. Ryan Flanoy, as we found out how to pronounce his name in our podcast today, Ryan Flanoy gets an opportunity to potentially start for the Cowboys, coming off a monster game last week against the Detroit Lions, most of it in the second half after Lamb left with the concussion. So you know that the Cowboys are probably going to be throwing a lot. You know that this is a tough matchup. However, opportunity presents itself, and if CeeDee Lamb is out, you could get a chance to maybe lean on Flanoy in 3 receiver leagues as a potential starter. All right, so receivers a little bit better than running back a little bit better than quarterback. We get to the end, and we usually find a lot of great options at tight end. So Dave, who are we looking at the tight end spot?
Is there a tight end that you can add off the waiver wire and start in week 15? I would say the answer to that is Likely. Isaiah Likely. You knew I was doing that. Thank you very much. Isaiah Likely, last 2 games for the Ravens, exactly 6 targets, exactly 12.5 PPR points, and the whole world knows that he should have had more than 12.5 PPR points, except for the referees in last week's game. Now he's taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamey, 11 tight ends have at least 10.7 PPR points against the Bengals. Not this season, their last 9 games. 11-9. It's amazing. It's a great matchup. The Ravens should attack that. Likely has seen his playing time go up just a little bit. His team target share has gone up actually a lot in his last 2 games, over 18%, both season highs. I thought Lamar Jackson looked okay in his first matchup against Cincinnati. Definitely better against Pittsburgh in week 14. Now he gets the Bengals again. Likely is a prize to get off the waiver wire this week. And then the rest of the list, Gesicki's got some upside against the Ravens. It's going to be tough for him. Certainly the opportunity will be there for him with T. Higgins not expected to play. Dalton Schultz has been pretty steady, just not a lot of upside. Same thing with Colson Loveland, although last week Loveland did score. With Gesicki, you're hoping that he can get in the neighborhood of 6-7 catches. Just be a short area option for Joe Burrow. If it's a game where the Bengals are able to run the ball, though, against the Ravens, then that's not going to bode well for Mike Gesicki. 2 other names to keep in mind on this list. Colby Parkinson has scored in 3 of his last 4 for the LA Rams. If that's going to be a high-scoring game against Detroit, he could end up being pretty good. And then TJ Hawkinson saw a slight uptick in work with J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy getting rid of the ball quicker. I think he'll do that again against Dallas. So there could be an opportunity for Hawkinson to maybe get 10 PPR points, but certainly a lot of the other tight ends on that list better than Hawkinson and Parkinson, at least as far as trust goes in fantasy this week.
Parkinson's actually scored in 4 of his last 5, and so for a game that could be high scoring, especially without Branch there for the Lions, I like Parkinson a lot based on what his role has been for the Rams. And Theo Johnson, last time we saw him, first game for Jackson Dart back after missing the 2 games with the concussion, season high 8 targets, so good matchup for him in this week as well. I just would caution a little with Gesicki because we already saw this once 2 weeks ago. It was no T. Higgins. It was against Baltimore. They've been very good because of Kyle Hamilton against tight ends for the majority of the season, and he did next to nothing. So if Higgins, which could be a long-term situation, they get the Dolphins next week, that's a fantastic matchup. Love the situation for Gesicki there in what would be a revenge game. This week, though, I'd be a little bit cautious about starting him against Baltimore. All right, Tommy, there's your waiver wire walkthrough, and take it away.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that was good. Make sure you don't mix up your words. That's tough to do, waiver wire walkthrough. Dave and Jamey, Heath Cummings and Adam Azer, make sure you scan the QR code. And again, best of luck if you did make your fantasy playoffs this year.